Welcome to the Joy of Synthesizing. Together we're going to have fun making a little synthesis music. In our conversation today, I want us to discuss this notion that's going around in our culture that if something was written in the past, then it could not be relevant till today. And of course, we're going to be examining this question using music. Many people today say that if something was written in a different time, in a different era, then it could not be sufficient for our modern way of living. It could not be sufficient when applied with modern technology or modern situations or just general circumstances that apply in modern life. However, this is a rather lacking argument because people have been making this argument for a very long time. The question of not whether or not something could still be relevant to us today. Well, take for instance this particular string of music. As you listen to this, it comes from Claude Debussy's Reverie. Picking up our MIDI controller here, you may have heard this riff before. That is a variation of the intro to Claude Debussy's Reverie. But then as it moves through the different themes in the piece of music, it gets to something which is a bit more like... But we're going to take that riff which you just heard up here, the whole, and do something a little bit more interesting with it. So you can hear it there, it sounds quite similar. We have that going ahead and programmed into our Volca FM, the frequency modulator. We're going to have a conversation about whether or not that old theme is still relevant with more modern music. Take for instance the theme from the Tarm ruins in The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons. If we take this old thing written in another time, will it still be relevant with something more modern? It's a big question. Many people would say no. But what if it were? Find is just because something was written for a different time period doesn't mean that it cannot still be relevant today and doesn't mean that it cannot be implemented in modern technology and in modern situations. Take for instance, Claude Debussy was around long before modern synthesizers, but yet the music is so beautiful. Even that, the elements, the concepts within the music are very beautiful when they're combined with modern technology and modern pieces of music. Coming back over to our Casio VL1, what if we take and add that in there to see how it sounds? We're going to go ahead and restart our sequence. That just because something was written in another time hardly means that it is not relevant to today's standards. Let's move over to another track, shall we? Yes. You see, this is a very old argument, the idea that something written in the past is not relevant till today. Even if we go back to the New Testament times, there were many people after Christ had come and walked the earth and he ascends. People are questioning whether or not Christ's ministry that was there in the flesh is still relevant to the people around them. They didn't know what would be happening, so we have an interesting predicament. Is something from the past still relevant to us today? You see, in the time of the apostles, moving on to the first and second, third generation of the church, people were in this place where they really didn't know if the ministry of Christ applied to their lives the same way that it did to their parents that came before them. They said, well, these earlier generations of the church, they were much closer. Does it still apply to our life now? Well, as we find towards the end of the New Testament, there are 3 epistles of John. In the first epistle of John, the writer, he has this great urge in his life to bring good orthodox understanding to the people around them. And in chapter 2, he reminds them that just because they did not live and walk in the flesh and blood that would be close to Christ, they didn't walk the earth at that time, they can still personally know Jesus. They still have that advocate. So again, people have been having this misunderstanding for a long time, that just because you weren't there, something may not be relevant. Wrap up our program today. I do hope you've enjoyed the synthesis music. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. And remember, when people tell you that something written in the past is not relevant till today, just think about this. Think about how we can take the old classics of music, the musical architecture handed down through us through time, and yet they're still relevant to today. Think about the fact that one can still know Jesus personally, even though the New Testament was written a while ago, and Jesus walked the earth a while ago. It was quite a long time since Jesus' ministry from birth up to the crucifixion happened, but yet even after the crucifixion there is the resurrection, and the kingdom lasts throughout time. Well, on that, I hope you've enjoyed our program. You can follow our content on YouTube or Facebook at Kingdom of the Logos. And on that, have a blessed day.